So I had a guest on my podcast named Robert Sawyer. Love Robert. He's a great guy. And he shared with me a few years ago before he came on the podcast, he says, when something comes across my desk, I do the 4 Ds. I can do it, I can delete it, I can delegate it, or I can delay it.
Oh, I
and
love
most
that.
people remember the first 3, but they don't often think of the last one, delay. And there's some wisdom in delay. This is the Leadership Foundry podcast. I'm your host this week, Brandon Smith, and our guest this week is Jamie Turner. Jamie is an internationally recognized author, professor, consultant, and TV news contributor. I've known Jamie for many, many years, and I just love our conversations around leadership and leadership today. So our conversation really had an organic feel today. We started off talking about leadership, and we just ended up going down paths ranging from self-awareness to executive presence to even how you message in a sticky way. So pay attention to some of the highlights of our conversation, particularly Jamie's point of views around mindset and how we can really show up as authentic leaders and really leverage our presence with our teams. I think he's got some great points. And of course, stay tuned to the very end, and I share with you my particular takeaways and highlights from our conversation. Jamie, thrilled to have you on the show, my friend. Really good. It's been a little while since I've had you on one of my podcasts, so really excited to have you on the show here today. And so since this is the Leadership Foundry podcast, and we spotlight everything that's all about leadership, it's exciting to be able to hear some of your wisdom and guidance today. So thank you for coming on the show.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you said, here's some of my wisdom without doing the air quotes. I know in your mind you were doing the air quotes, but I appreciate the compliment. And it's great to see you too. We have so much in common, and I always love catching up with you and talking about leadership and all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah. So before we jump into our conversation, for listeners and viewers that don't know you yet, and they should, by the way, maybe here would be a great opportunity to share a little bit more about you. So take a few moments to share about the good stuff you're doing right now, and maybe a few kind of tidbits on what got you there.
You know, a lot of what I'm doing right now is based on leadership. I have a website called unspokenrules.live, which is basically about the unspoken rules of leadership. And essentially how it all got started was I was consulting with a corporation, had a young guy in that company who was really rough around the edges. He was very ambitious, pretty smart, but he lacked kind of the training that you might get as you go through a traditional corporate career. And so I started talking to him about the kind of insider tips on how to be an effective leader. And I realized the things I was telling him, because I was an outsider, I could tell them things that the HR department wouldn't allow you to tell somebody. So as an example, I would say, hey, you know what? The shirts you wear really aren't going to promote the idea that you're an executive. You need to change it. Now, if I'm inside a company, I can't really say that. HR comes knocking on the door saying, you can't talk about people's clothing to him, all that sort of stuff. He was very eager to hear these unspoken rules. So I started doing a lot of that. And now I basically go around the country and of the globe really and talk about the unspoken rules of leadership and how to be a more effective leader and how to do a better job leading yourself and leading others.
That's great. What got you into this business? I know you and I have talked about it before, but what was kind of your journey that kind of got you ultimately doing this kind of work?
I'm going to be 110% transparent and honest here. I came out of the world of marketing. I teach marketing at Emory University as well as the University of Texas. But as I was getting older and doing more and more speeches about marketing, I realized the average age of a marketing executive is about 35 years old. As I got older, I realized there was going to be more and more distance between what I was talking to them about and their sort of mindset. And I remember when I was 35, I was working with my father, great guy. He was a madman, from Madison Avenue, all that sort of stuff, worked with some of the greats. But I remember even when I was 35 thinking, he's an old guy. What does he know? So I realized I was going to keep getting older, but the average age of a marketing director was going to stay the same. So I thought, well, how do I take what I know, which is effective communication, presentation, sort of leadership skills that I learned not only in marketing, but also learned as the head of a company. I ended up saying, okay, well, you know what? One thing that that people really reward the older you get is leadership, because they see you as somebody with a lot of wisdom and they look to you for sort of, here's what's really going on. So that was the starting point, was sitting down and saying, hey, what can I do as a jumping point for a career trajectory that'll get me the next 10, 15 years doing something that is bigger than marketing. And so that's how I got into leadership.
Fantastic. So since you spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff, teaching on some of this stuff, and even as it relates to leadership, what do you see as some of those key things that leaders should be thinking about today or doing today that's going to help them get better?
I always talk to people about working on your mindset first and your skill set second. What happens is that people get into their careers and they go, oh, if I can just learn the software program, or if I can just learn how to use that, I'll be much better at my job. The truth is, the way to get better at your job is to work on your mindset, figure out appropriate thoughts, because good, positive, thoughtful ideas and thoughts lead to good, positive actions. And that combination of good thoughts and good actions leads, in most cases, to good outcomes. We don't always have a good outcome because sometimes there are variables that pop in that, kind of screw things up. But I always teach people, work on how you think about things, then that'll translate into better actions. And that combination of good thoughts plus good actions leads to better outcomes.
So when you talk about mindset and kind of preparing people to think more about that, walk us through that process a little bit more. How long does that take? What are some starting places?
Yeah.
How do you do it? Because I think people listening right now would say, okay, yeah, Jamie, I agree. I get this. Is this something I can do when I'm commuting on the 2 days I go into the office? Or is this something that's going to take a full day? What are some of the things that I need to be doing, and how do I do it?
If people knew how much time I spent on managing my mindset, and I'll get to some specific tactics in a second, but if they knew how many really hours a day I spend on that, they would say, how do you get any work done? And my answer is, it's because I spend that time on managing my mindset that I get a lot of work done. So if you want to increase your productivity, work on your mindset. What is the problem out there that people are facing? Anxiety and stress. Those are two things that block people from reaching their peak productivity. They get anxious about things because they're worried about the future or concerned about the past. They get stressed because they're concerned about how their boss feels about them. So I do a lot of work on my mind to settle it down, to get it focused, and to get it zeroed in and locked in on peace, perspective, and tranquility. And the question then is, well, okay, tell us what you do. Many things. Number one, every morning I wake up, do 5-10 minutes of yoga stretching. Great little technique. But more importantly, I spend 20 minutes doing transcendental meditation in the morning. Now, you can do any form of meditation you want. I will encourage you to do a real deep kind of meditation that gets you in something called the alpha state. The alpha state is where you feel connected to everything. Your eyes are closed and you feel like you are the universe and the universe is you. That's the easiest way to describe it. I do that for 20 minutes in the morning, settles my brain down. By the way, I have ADD or ADHD, just depending on which diagnosis you want to think about. I manage my ADD through meditation, because what it does is it takes all the energy and blood flow from the reptilian part of your brain, which is at the base of your skull. And that's where our impulses happen. All the fight, flight stuff happens there. For somebody who has ADD or ADHD, a lot of your energy and sort of, brain capacity is in that sort of impulsive mode. What happens when you meditate is it helps bring the energy and blood flow to the forefront of your brain, which is called the prefrontal cortex. That's where our executive reasoning happens. So I'm going to just sort of walk you through. I know I'm going a little long on this answer, but I'm going to walk you through the power of meditation, which is when you meditate, it opens up the executive reasoning, the prefrontal cortex, to manage those impulses. So if you feel anxious about things, learn to meditate. If you feel stressed about things, learn to meditate. If you want to improve your focus, learn to meditate, because that act of meditation actually helps improve things. I'm going to pause there because I know I went really long with that answer. I'm only halfway through with sort of the protocol I go through in order to manage my mindset, but I'll pause there and see if you have any questions about meditation or yoga or
really
anything.
Good, Jamie. It's so funny knowing how you've been trained to be on media interviews. You're saying to yourself, I've overdone my soundbite limit. I need to talk. Most guests, they'll just go for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes on an answer. So I appreciate you pausing. It's kind of funny. No, I think that's great. I've never heard one person say to me, meditation didn't work for me. It wasn't helpful for me. It wasn't productive. I mean, it's just one of those foundational, fundamental things. And what I love about your answer is it really speaks to how you've learned to do that as a form of self-management, helping you become more focused.
Yeah.
So I want to take this conversation in a slightly different direction.
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's going to be a fun one. Okay. So I want to build on 3 things. Okay. We're going to put them all together and see if we can cook a dish with them. So first I want to take self-management, which we just talked about there. Beautiful. And then I want to take leadership. Okay. I'm going to add that into the mix. And then I want to take a third one, and that is marketing. Okay.
Good.
So when we put them all together, we might call that executive presence.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's such an important topic because I get clients all the time that say, hey, will you go work with this person? And I don't know, they're great, but like, they lack that executive presence-y thing.
Yeah.
Or I'll have somebody say, yeah, I want to, moving up the ranks. I want executive presence. I'll say, what does that mean to you? I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I know that I want it. Okay. So let's just play a little bit. When you think about executive presence, which is kind of the intersection of those three things, right? We're self-management. We're really being thoughtful about that. And if we don't, that can cause issues. It's leadership because we've got to lead people. They got to kind of see that in us. And it really is marketing. I mean, in a sense, because it's how we package ourselves, how we package our message. Because that's really what people are talking about is packaging.
Yeah.
And branding. Okay. It's now branding for leaders. So we call it executive presence.
Yeah.
So big. Now that's longer soundbite for me. That's a big setup to this. I would love for you to kind of within that context, play a little bit. What are some things when you think of executive presence that you think leaders need to be conscious of and aware of? And let's see what we can come up together.
No, I love that. The starting point, and I know you'll agree with this, is self-awareness, is being aware of how you impact others. I have a wonderful oldest brother, Johnny, if you're listening, I apologize. I'm about to criticize you, but he's brilliant. He's brilliant. Utterly lacks any self-awareness of how he impacts others around him. So his life is a lot of times in chaos, but he's brilliant. That like one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And he's had a successful career. But he would be a classic case of when you don't have self-awareness, when you don't understand how your actions impact others, then you're a bull in a china shop, and that has opens up a whole can of worms. The other thing that I talk about a lot, and I know you'll be familiar with this too, is the space. Viktor Frankl talked about the space between stimuli and response. And in that space is where our life is sort of created. And what he meant was we all have stimuli all day long, all day long, all day long. If we react very quickly to those stimuli, it gets back to that impulsivity. We end up having actions that really we regret later. And so Viktor Frankl said, when you open up the space between stimuli and response, it gives you a moment to think and to think, how should I respond to this? What's the best outcome for this, and how should I do this, as opposed to just instantly reacting to something. So those two things are kind of the foundation, I think, and I'd love to hear what you think, Brandon, but in terms of what you do when you coach at the Leadership Foundry and everything else that you do, but that combination of self-awareness and also understanding that there's a space between stimuli and response, and what we do with that space dictates the outcome of our lives. But I'm interested in how you approach it. What do you tell people?
I'm going to build on what you said. I think it's great. I think so. Let's take that and add some color to it. So when we think about the space between stimuli and response, what you're saying there is pause. So I had a guest on my podcast named Robert Sawyer. Love Robert. He's a great guy. And he shared with me a few years ago before he came on the podcast, he says, when something comes across my desk, I do the 4Ds. I can do it. I can delete it. I can delegate it, or I can delay it.
Oh,
and most people remember the first three, but they don't often think of the last one, delay. And there's some wisdom in delay. And so I think that leaders, particularly what gets us promoted, is I use this analogy all the time with my clients. I'll say, are you trying to win an MVP, or are you trying to win a championship? Because those are two very different things.
Yeah.
And what gets us promoted to senior ranks is winning the MVP. It's just do. There's no delete. There's no delegate. There's no delay. It's just do. Yeah. And that's our stress behavior. We get stressed out. We go harder at the wall. And you remind us that executive presence is no, that doesn't, going harder at the wall isn't necessarily the only way to achieve this goal. In fact, it might actually be damaging. You may step on people's toes because you may not be aware of the context or the emotional state of folks, or frankly, spend enough time thinking about the problem before you move. So I think there's something to be said for reminding us, and it goes back to even how you started this, when you talk about spending that time meditating, making sure that we're thinking about all the options at our disposal, and sometimes waiting and pausing and reflecting is the right path forward, particularly when you think about leaders dealing with, say, crisis, for example. It's one of those many challenging things for leaders that are executives. They have crisis situations happen, with a customer or one of their facilities. And if they react too quickly, they're not going to have all the information, and they're going to say something that maybe is not quite in right context, or put their PR or legal team in a bind. Or if they react too late, they don't care. They're insulated and isolated from what's really going on. So there's this space in between where, as you said, we've got to kind of figure out how to navigate in there. So those are some thoughts that went through my head, my friend, when you shared yours.
Well, I love, because I learned so much from you, as I know everybody who participates in Leadership Foundry does. But can you tell me the 4 Ds again? I got delay, delegate.
So the first one is do. That's the natural one. Everyone's going to remember do.
Yeah.
And then delete would be the next one. I don't have to do this. I'm going to delete that. Delegate is the third one. Learn how to get things done through other people. And then the last one is the hardest one. This one often comes with wisdom and age. I find people tend to master the ability to slow down in their early 40s. That's when they start learning how to do that. I mean, people can get there earlier. So I want to be clear. You can always arrive to this party early. But most people developmentally as leaders, that's the thing they have to kind of learn how to master in their 40s. Is learning when not to respond. And how to respond in measured ways when there may be kind of emotions at stake, particularly if they're passionate leaders. We love passionate leaders. The challenge with passionate leaders is they're passionate. They're passionate when things are great. If they're mad, everyone knows.
Which makes it difficult on the employees to do that roller coaster ride. A couple of things crossed my mind as you were saying all of those things. One is you were saying about as you get wisdom in your career, you start slowing down and sort of being a little more thoughtful in your actions. There's a great line that was the young person rushes through life for fear of missing something. The older person slows down for fear of missing it all, which I thought was a great way to sort of say, hey, when you slow down and take a breath, you're able to take everything in. I got a couple of other ones to piggyback on the 4 Ds. I love that. Jotted them down. I know everybody.
Go for it. I've got my notepad ready to go.
Well, one thing you were talking about executive presence. And one thing I talk to people about is the difference between authenticity and transparency. That right now we're in a big movement towards authenticity, which is great. Be genuine, be authentic. Wonderful. Some people confuse authenticity with full transparency. And the difference is being authentic is being genuine. Being fully transparent is telling your employees, wow, I went to a bachelor party in Vegas this weekend, and let me tell you what we did. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody. And so being fully transparent is a bad thing. Being fully authentic is a good thing. And I think that's an important thing to understand. I remember having a friend of mine do a speech, and it was in that peak of the authenticity movement. And he came out and started the speech talking about his addiction to porn. And I remember thinking, I don't want to hear that. I'm in a business environment right now. You're a friend on the stage here. I don't need to hear that about you, all that sort of stuff. So that's when it hit me. Okay, there's full transparency, not a good thing. There's full authenticity, which is a good thing. And one final thing is the less is more. My lovely wife taught me this, that sometimes when replying, and this goes back to the 4Ds, less is more. The more information, in particular via email, the more information you put into an email, the more likely it is to be misinterpreted, misunderstood, alarm people, all that sort of stuff. Sometimes just a 1 or 2 word sentence response is everything that's needed, because it clarifies communication, and clarity of communication, of course, is critical for any executive. But I love all the tips you provide. I mean, seriously, I'm learning so much from you, and I know everybody learns so much from you. It's good to hear all these tips.
Well, Jamie, you and I are, we're like kindred spirits. So we see a lot of the same things, and just different languages to add color to it. So I loved your distinction between authenticity and transparency. I think that's so true. Yeah. And then there's got to be a genuineness to it too. And I often will tell folks too, I say, because one of the challenges with the authenticity movement, which I was not a super big fan of, is it left out other complementary pieces, which were so important, because it is possible to be an authentic jerk. You can walk in and say, hey, I'm a jerk. Deal with it.
Yeah,
like I'm being genuine. That. I mean, I'm being transparent to a certain degree too, but I'm telling you how I operate, and I'm going to be consistent to that.
Yeah.
But that's not the kind of leader we necessarily want to work for.
I like that idea is, being an authentic jerk is not a good idea for an executive. So
if we pair that authenticity with either some level of humility or maybe even better, some kind of higher good that we're trying to achieve, I'm an authentic leader in service of something bigger than me, then that helps to kind of clean up that possible downside.
Well, I got 2 other ones. Everything you say triggers something in my memory. So I'm gonna jump in on the humility that you just mentioned. Humility, which is an important thing. Yeah. Literally, studies are showing that the most effective leaders are humble. And we grew up in an environment where it was like, be brash, be bold, be arrogant, take charge, all that sort of stuff. And the newest studies are coming out saying, no. It's the person who walks into the room and says, I am here to learn and to serve. Those are the people who actually now rise to the top, because they understand that the power of humility. And sometimes we forget about that. But I was interested in that when you mentioned that just a second ago.
Yeah, it's so funny. Yes. So just in this week, I've had clients on 2 ends of the spectrum, as I've been doing 360 interviews. So not just my opinion. I mean, this is what folks are telling me.
Yeah.
So I've got one leader, they say he comes in and he's a little too brash. And brash for them is he's so buttoned up, and he's got like his talking points so down that it doesn't leave any room for conversation, and he's not being seen as humble. It seems like he's just he's not inviting people in. He's just going, here's where we're going. That's not his intention. He's trying to share with people his thinking, but it's being seen as not humble. On the other end, I've got someone who's super confident. And they're like, this guy, in all of our organization, he's one of the few guys, you want something done, he'll do it. But he walks into a room, he's so humble, he's so quiet, he's so self-deprecating that we don't even see him. I think his title's director. We don't even see him he doesn't even feel like one of the rest of the directors. He feels like a manager or supervisor. It's almost too much humility, because there's no it's almost like he's too gooey in the middle, too wishy-washy. Like he's so laid back that he's riding in the back seat.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we have an answer to this, my friend, but it feels like don't go to either side of the pole. Like try and find something in the middle that balances the best of both those worlds, some level of confident and humble. is the right path forward. That's kind of what I'm hearing in our conversation.
No, I love that. Somewhere in the middle, and that's a good place to be. I got one other one that was triggered again by something you said, which is if you're working on executive presence and you're trying to be a better leader and a more effective leader, your number one job is to get inside the mind of your employees, understand what motivates them, what drives them, so that you can fulfill that through your business. So I had a friend, true story, I had a friend who was interviewing at Accenture, the consultancy, and he goes in for the job interview and the person says, "What do you want to be doing in 5 years?" And my friend thought, well, I can give the normal answer. I want to help transform this office, or I want your job, or whatever, those sort of trite and pat answers are in job interviews. And he thought, no, you know what? I'm going to just be honest with the guy. So the guy said, what do you want to be doing in 5 years? And my friend said, truthfully, I want to be retired in Mallorca. And here's what the person interviewing him said. Great. Let's make that happen. Which is brilliant, because what it was saying, if that's your goal, awesome. We're going to make it happen for you here at Accenture. We're going to put you on a 5-year trajectory so you can get out in 5 years and go retire in Mallorca. And guess what? True story. 3 months ago, we got an email from him. He said, we're moving to Mallorca.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was a great way to say, as a leader, it's your job to get inside the mind of your employees, understand what's motivating them and what's driving them, and then use that motivation for the benefit of the company as well as for the employee. And that's what this person at Accenture did was, hey, we'll make that happen. Let's put you on a 5-year plan, and we're going to get you out of here in 5 years, and you're going to go retire in Mallorca. And he did, with his lovely wife. So they're over there right now.
So the spirit of this interview and conversation here today, Jamie, is going to be like, you say something and I'm like, well, that sparks something for me. And then I'm going to say something, you're going to be like, well, that sparks something for me. So you were saying that, and it reminds me of all the years when I was teaching full-time MBA students, evening MBA students on the topic of feedback. And I would ask them questions like, well, tell me about a time when you got meaningful feedback. Okay, how was it delivered? What made it meaningful to you?
Yeah.
And consistently, and so these are folks in the room that have had all different kinds of work experience, working in restaurants where the feedback is immediate and it's not necessarily pleasant when it's delivered. Military, it's immediate, not necessarily pleasant when it's delivered. And consistently they said, it really actually didn't really matter to me so much on how the feedback was delivered. If I knew the person giving me the feedback had my best intentions at heart.
Love it.
If they were doing it because they cared about me and wanted to see me get better, then I didn't really care if they were dropping F-bombs and saying, what is this? But on the flip side, it could be the most polished message in the world. But if I felt like the person really was just playing politics, or it's really all about them and has nothing to do with me, the feedback was meaningless.
I love that.
Interesting. I mean, interesting, because we talk so much about polished communication, and you and I both believe in that. But intention is what I took away from your last comment. If you got to, and people feel that, they can tell when someone really legitimately is interested in them and cares about them and trying to honor their goals. That's a feeling that we would want others to feel around us if we're leaders. Yeah,
totally. Absolutely. Just sort of having empathy and using that as the foundation upon which you build the relationship. And when you do that, people will go the extra mile for you. They will work hard if they know that you are doing your best to help them achieve their goals. And the starting point for that is to make sure that you understand what their goals are. But the other thing is, as you said, is basically having good intentions for them and where you move from that point on.
Okay. So I've got another question for you.
Great.
And this is going to be kind of a nice blend of marketing and leadership communication. Okay. So John Kotter, who's one of the famous kind of gurus in the change management space, he says, if you really want to be successful in leading change, you got to have two things. You have to have a high enough sense of urgency and a simple, sticky message as a leader. Yeah. So it's high. So urgency, which, I've written on urgency. We got to get that hot sauce at the right levels for that. Yeah. That's another conversation, but I would really like to talk to you about simple, sticky messaging. Yeah. Because that really is this intersection between the best of what we know about marketing and the best of what we know about leadership communication, and bringing those together in a way that people say, yeah. So maybe if you could kind of jam a little bit on this idea of what makes a simple, sticky message, what does that look like? How do we know it's simple and sticky? And then what are some ways we could try and get closer to that?
Yeah, I love that. And I had an experience early in my career that I've since used that illustrates the point you're making. Early in my career, I had a boss named Julie, and we would go into meetings, and the meetings would be, an hour long where we were talking about how to take care of this client. And all of these variables were introduced, and all of the things were in it. And it was always a mess. And at the end of the meeting, she was always the one that said, we've talked about a lot here, but in the end, there's only 3 things that are important, A, B, and C, right? And everybody would go, yeah, that kind of summarizes it. And then she'd go, okay, well, we have our marching orders then. And I watched her do that so many times. I thought, you know what? There is a brilliance to that, because it's that sticky message. When people have convoluted messages, they can't remember what to focus on, and they kind of go off on these tangents. So she was really good at that. And that's what I tell people when I do a lot of TikTok videos, and the videos are basically sort of quick, short tips. And one of the tips I provide was, if you're a young employee or a mid-level employee and you want to stand out, you're going to be in all sorts of meetings where it gets chaotic and people kind of wrap up the meeting and there's nobody there summarizing, next steps or what the meeting, the outcome of the meeting was. If you can be that person who just says, hey, by the way, for my own edification, this is what you would do. Hey, by the way, just for me, I want to be sure I understand what we discussed here. I think that in the end, we decided that we're going to expand into the West Coast, right? And that way you're being positioned as the person who summarizes that little sticky that you're talking about. And also people are going, oh, thank you for kind of clarifying the mess that we were just in, because we talked about so many things. We got off on these tangents. So I often tell people, do that. And it's a great way for you to differentiate yourself from your peers, which is a good thing. And make sure that you are the person in the meeting that kind of gives the distilled version of the meeting at the end of the meeting. It'll position you well as you move forward in your career.
Jamie, I love that, brother. I've never been diagnosed. Maybe I've got some ADHD, ADD tendencies myself. I keep changing my definition of leadership. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because of me or the environment that I'm in. But my current one, when I've been talking to my clients recently, I would say, listen, if we boil leadership down to really 2 main things, as a leader, we're trying to create focus and alignment. If we're really wearing the leader hat, it's those 2 things. Our team is looking to us to say, okay, what really matters here? And then getting everybody on the same page, kind of moving them forward to do that thing. And so what I loved about your story was it made me think of that. And that is the job of leadership. It's messy. It's noisy. Yeah. There's a lot of knowns and unknowns. It's all thrown in the stew. You got to kind of figure out what really matters, what doesn't matter. And that's a leader's job, is to kind of go through all that muck and then figure out and say, this is the stuff that really matters. Yeah. And this is what everyone needs to do going forward. And someone's got to do that job. And I love that we can start to model that early in our careers and show folks, hey, I can do that, folks. Yeah. We can lead from behind, which will ultimately allow us to get tapped to lead from the front. So that was what went through my head as you were sharing that great story.
No, I love that. I'm looking over my shoulder. A great book called How to Lead by David Rubenstein, who's an investment banker in New York City. And these are all the people that he interviewed. But it's a great book. His definition, and by the way, for the record, I like yours better than his. But his was a leader is someone who makes something happen that otherwise wouldn't have happened. So in other words, I think that's a nice idea, but I like yours better, believe it or not, because it really is easier to grasp onto, which is, hey, it's your job to focus people's attention on stuff that's going to move the needle for your organization, your business, your relationship, whatever it is. That's what true leadership is about. So I actually like that better than what he wrote.
Well, I think they're complementary. His is great because it shows you at the end of the day, this is the outcome that a leader would generate. Mine is a little more competency based. You'd be able to focus and then create alignment. But
Yeah.
that's great. Well, I know we're getting close on time. So I ask all my guests this question, my friend.
Yeah.
What is one practical tip that we as leaders can take away from our conversation here today, or even outside of our conversation here today, that we can start doing tomorrow to make our teams better? What's one practical thing leaders can start doing?
I would say it's get inside the minds of your employees and understand what motivates them, what drives them, and what their personal goals are. If you understand that, and this goes back to what you were talking about, they will understand that your intention is good, that we can have a mutually beneficial relationship where I understand what you want to accomplish in your life, you understand what I want to accomplish in the business, and working together, we can make both those things happen. So get inside the mind of your employees, understand what motivates them, and then use that information in order to keep them motivated and engaged and inspired to work their best for you.
Jamie, I love that. And I'm so thrilled you have had the background and career you've had, because so many leaders lack that market research, customer curiosity that is so critical, that you learn in marketing. You learn to kind of get in the heads of customers. And what you said right there was, now take that same skill and we're going to apply it to our team, apply it to our people. What does the organization need here today? And how can we understand that better so they can feel that? And we can also understand how to motivate them and move them, which is fantastic. Well, thank you, my friend, for coming on the show. So if people want to learn more about you and the great work you're doing, where can they go?
Two places. Unspokenrules.live is if you want to learn about my leadership platform that's designed to help organizations improve their productivity of their employees and the leadership capabilities of their employees. It's unspokenrules.live. I also do a lot of keynotes all around the globe. I'll be in Portugal in a couple of weeks for a 3-day workshop for an organization out of Brazil. And you can learn more about those kinds of things at jamieturner.live. So jamieturner.live or unspokenrules.live. The easiest thing, to be honest with you, is just Google Jamie Turner, and then you'll see all sorts of stuff on Google about me.
Fantastic. Well, as always, your gift. Thanks for coming on.
Likewise.
I look forward to the next time we get to do this conversation again. Feels like we were just getting started.
Yeah, I agree. We do a good job of piggybacking off of each other. So thank you for the learning experience for me as well. I really enjoyed it.
It was a really fun conversation with Jamie. We just got to wander around and discuss leadership today. And that's a really rich topic because it's evolving, just like we're all evolving. And Jamie hits a couple important points. So first, he came right out of the gate with mindset. He said, mindset's really, really important. And making sure we get our mindset right is key. He even talked about his struggles with ADHD and ADD and using meditation to really focus. Now, whether we've got a challenge like Jamie illustrated, or we have general anxiety and depression, which would categorize most of us, we can use meditation to overcome that. Then we started moving down the path of executive presence, and we talked about the importance of being self-aware and understanding how others see us and understanding how to slow down a little bit. I shared with Jamie the 4 Ds, and he really appreciated those. And we talked about the importance of being able to delay. And then we even talked a little bit more about authenticity versus transparency. And Jamie gave us some nice distinctions between authenticity, being genuine, versus transparency and just sharing everything going on in our minds and maybe everything we did that weekend. Jamie ended up talking at the very end around making sure that sticky messaging, an easy way that we can get seen as leaders today, whether we're in leadership roles or aspiring to be leaders, is to make sure at the end of every meeting, we're summarizing not only what was discussed, but next steps. So a nice tactical way to start positioning ourselves as better leaders starting today. So we went from everything from meditation to sticky messaging, all valuable tools for you to be a better leader. So my hope for you is there was something in there you took away that will help you to be a better leader starting tomorrow.